My name is Dennis George, and I am from Kerala, India. And I was born in Kuwait in the Middle East. My parents worked there, so I grew up for most of my years in Kuwait, and came back to India in '87 and studied and did my higher studies there. I am a third generation Seventh-day Adventist, and we have faithfully, you know, uh, attended church all our lives. But somehow, though I worked outside, I worked in the corporate sector for many years. Somehow, deep inside, uh, I felt that there was a need for me to do some kind of a ministry, and there was a deep longing, but never had an opportunity. We never went to any um, theology courses, but we used to be reading and studying a lot and sharing, going places and talking. And it's at some point that after marriage, I got married and I had two children. That I was more inclined. I was working in Bangalore for for a financial firm as a financial consultant, and I started reading some of the Spirit of Prophecy books that was really talking to me. And I read the book Patriots and Prophets, uh, and it was very exciting to learn about the fall of man and coming down to Seth and Cain and Abel, and then to the flood. And it really made me think a lot, because there it says, as in the days of Noah, so shall it be. And I was wondering if this has any relevance to my work and my lifestyle, because we used to attend church every week, and children used to attend Sabbath school. My wife used to work in Lowry Adventist College as a lecturer. But the things that she saw in the classrooms and the things I saw in my workplace and in the city begin to make me think as to, is this the right place for children to grow up? But we had no alternatives, and we didn't know of anything better. We thought that was the best place that we should be. And as I read these books, it began to make me think that God should have another way. And I came down to the Tower of Babel, and the Tower of Babel really made me think of where we are. We are all working to do something that that does not glorify God, and it really frightened me after reading that chapter as to what can I do for my children and for my own spiritual growth. And the very next chapter, we see the call of Abraham, and I somehow felt that I could relate to that call that God gave to Abraham, and it was something as though God was speaking to me, because we prayed. I prayed with my wife, and children were very small at that time, and we were thinking, what can we do? Where else can we go? I mean, uh, this is what we have been educated all our life. This is our lifestyle, and how can we do anything better uh, than what we are doing right now? But that chapter spoke to me, and it said something that I'd like to just share uh, right now. It says here, many are still tested as was Abraham. It was no light test that was thus brought upon Abraham, no small sacrifice that was required of him. There were strong ties to bind him to his country, his kindred, and his home, but he did not hesitate to obey the call. He did not question to ask concerning the land of promise. God has spoken, and his servant must obey. The happiest place on earth for him was the place where God would have him to be. That really made me think. If Abraham could leave everything and go to a place where he did not know, but he believed that where God would have him to be, that would be his happiest place, was an encouragement for me. And in the next paragraph, many are still tested, as was Abraham. They do not hear the voice of God speaking directly from the heavens, but he calls them by the teachings of his word and the events of his providence. They may be required to abandon a career that promises wealth and honor, to leave congenial and profitable associations, and separate from kindred, to enter upon what appears to be only a path of self denial, hardship, and sacrifice. God had a work for them to do, but a life of ease and the influence of friends and kindred would hinder the development of the very traits essential for its accomplishment. He calls them away from human influences and aid and leads them to feel the need of his help and to depend upon him alone that he may reveal himself to them. Who is ready at the call of providence to renounce cherished plans and familiar associations? Who will accept new duties and enter untried fields, doing God's work with firm and willing heart, for Christ's sake, counting his losses gain? He who will do this has the faith of Abraham and will share with him that far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. God had spoken to me through that passage, and I somehow knew that I had to move out of Bangalore, and we didn't know where. We started praying, we started searching, and we got an opportunity to move to a smaller town in Nagarkoil, where we went to our friend's place, and he opened the doors for us, and we could spend a year and a half with him. So the next question was, what about our children's education? And what accessibility will we have to health program and the health? And so the Lord revealed that he had an education program. He had another health message for us that we didn't know. We were ignorant of, I dare say. But as we took these steps, we found that we had to unlearn many things and slowly had to learn new things in our lives. And he revealed through the spirit of prophecy, through many teachers who came to our lives and shared their experience as to how we can grow up our children um, in a totally different way. And we found that education was all about character development more than just cramping a lot of knowledge and spending a lot of time writing and reading and going through exams. It's more about how useful we can be and how we can teach our children to know God in a much better way. So we decided to take that stand. It was very difficult because we did not have the support of our families and our friends. They slowly started keeping a distance from us, but somehow as we read, we were encouraged by the promises that we saw, and it became very clear that God has an alternate system of life. Whether it is our education, whether it is our health, whether it is the gospel, we also begin to understand what Seventh-day Adventism really meant. Though we have been faithfully attending church, we did not understand, and we saw its beauty when we started reading and studying the gospel, the education, the health, and finally an alternative way of living. Because from there, Nagarkoil, we were led to a place, a ministry in Erode, where we had an established ministry run by Uncle Bill Dull. And there we learned a lot of things, how we can work with our hands. You know, being in the city, we lived in the air conditioned rooms and sat in front of computers. And now we had to go in the fields and, get our hands dirty. And that was very difficult initially. But then we realized that that's something that we had to learn and do, and therefore unlearn many of them. And I would say it's almost been 12 years, but still we haven't fully unlearned everything. There's still a lot of things that are still in our life, and we find it difficult to get into the discipline of this kind of lifestyle. But it was possible for us to slowly take these steps, and God opened doors. I have to say that whenever we thought everything is going to close and is going to be difficult, a door opened. And me, along with my wife, she was a big support. And along with our children, we came, and we came to Erode, and from there an opening came to this ministry in Salem, and we have been here for the last 9 years. And it has been an amazing journey. uh, we have unlearned a lot of things and learned a lot of things. I am not the same that I was 10 years before, but the Lord has revealed through his prophet how we can prepare our hearts and minds and our children. And as we see the COVID situation, we realize we are better prepared than if had we not taken these decisions earlier. So that's what we did. And by the grace of God, we are still learning many things, and slowly getting into an organic farm. We have a farm here. We have a lifestyle center here, which is not currently active, but when people on a mutual basis they're willing to come, we are able to take up help guests and do something for them. We also conduct evangelistic meetings here, and we also travel to different places, taking Vespers and full day Sabbaths as a family, Sabbath school program, and health lectures here and there. So that's the way that the Lord has been leading me and my family. And we hope and pray that we are able to continue in this lifestyle, and able to teach and show many people that there is a better and simple and easy way of living that will prepare ourselves and our families and many others for the coming trouble that is ahead of us. So that's it, brother.
Amen. Thank you very much. That's
Amen.
led you and your family from the city to the simple lifestyle in the country. So we praise the Lord that God has led you, and He will continue to lead you. Uh, brother Gemechu, you can share
Okay.
your testimony. Brother Duncan he's exited, but go ahead, brother Gemechu.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Gemechu Negesso from Ethiopia. I'm very glad to share my testimony, and I'm inspired with the brother testimony. It is really touching, and I was also I would like to share my testimony from the onset to the end. I'm from I've told you earlier, and actually, I'm not from our. I just got these truths not from just from advanced family, but I was not from advanced family before. I just accept Jesus Christ as my personal savior after just my own personal studies and all. So still some of my families they are Muslim, and just praying for them that they can accept Jesus Christ as a personal savior. Also, to begin my testimony, God gave me opportunity to joined seminary theology, and I just through my studies of theology, I just tried to learn a lot of things. But when I went to India, God gave me opportunity to meet those friends that I'm discussing with right now, and I met brother Zach at Spicer Adventist University with brother Charles, Dr. Charles. And when I meet them for the first time, I really just observe a lot of things when they share about prophecy. I really was excited about it, and I tried to approach them, and because they were approachable, they are really just they want to empower the young people. When they came there, their main agenda was to empower young people. They don't have, they were not there by having another agenda. Their agenda is to fill the mind of young people with the present truth. That was their agenda. So after I just get to know them, and then they invited me to the to the place called Mahad. That was the place where they have settled in the country. So addition to the study that I was doing, and then I was excited about the workshop and training that they have been conducting at Mahad. So when I was the time that I've spent it in India, in India, I really just benefited a lot, really to get to know those family, amazing fact family, brother Zach and brother Charles. So finally, I just learn a lot of things about the country living, as well as about the what is all about having, what is all about being an Adventist. Is the real identity of Advent, being an Adventist, by the way. So they used to just conduct a seminar of hold a seminar of prophecy together with brother Charles. So finally, before I just left Spicer, those workshop, those training have benefited me a lot, that I can get back to my country and make a difference at all. So this is a real testimony that I'm sharing, by the way. I'm not just making up my own story here. So after that, before I left India, I get to know brother Dennis. I have been to his place, by the way. Brother Zach have took me to that place, Salem. So God have given me opportunity to learn a lot of things, by the way, from with the time that I've spent there and all. So finally, I get to know brother Andrew as well at Mahad, and finally I just when brother Duncan came from Kenya, I introduced him with brother Zach. So those things was not by accident, because when God connected with the people, God connected with the people, with those people that you can understand something better to get back to your country and make a difference. And before I wind up my testimony, I would like to just outline the type of I want to outline in category, just before I wind up. So when God brought me to this light from the Muslim family, just from the dark to light, and then God want to use me for His glory. That's what I believe personally, because when our sister Ellen White just man talk to when she in the book which called it Life in the Scriptures, she said, unless we forget how God have led us, this is the way that we have word, unless we forget how God have led us, we have nothing to fear for the future at all. So personally, God have led me through many ways, and then I have been following His lead. When I just left India, and brother Zach and his family, with his family, they prayed for me, and when they prepared for me, and so they have given me some material that I can just get when they just on camera with the stand. And then I did not expect that those blessings, by the way. So but God have used him, and just that they can be used when I get back to Ethiopia. After I just after I get back to Ethiopia, also what amazed me is I was inherited one of the land from one of Adventist man. So I was praying just to build my own country home on that land. But finally, I was praying, where can I get a fund? That was the main issue. Finally, really when I give this testimony, I really just I'm giving it really just with a lot of excitement, with a lot of joy, you know. So, and by the help of brother Zach and his family, I have managed to build my own country home. And then, to be frank, to be clear for you, by the way, I am 250 kilometers far, 250 kilometers far from the capital city of Ethiopia, by the way, Addis Ababa. That means we are too far from Tiri at all. So from the town that we have in our area are around 35 kilometers far at all. So for us to access city, we have to travel 35 kilometers. We're too far from city, from town even at all. From capital city of Ethiopia, we are 250 kilometers far. So, and then when I imagine about those things and all, just I really just came to know that following God's lead is the only option that each and every Adventist have. By the way, personally, that is what I really believe. So, and by the help of God have used Brother Zach and his family that I can have my own country home right now. And then I'm in the country right now. I'm not just in city at all. I don't have access to city to town at all because um, this is what God have told us before any crisis come to this world. By the way, so to wind up my testimony, God have led me in marvelous way. So I'm very happy to share to share my testimony and all. God have brought me from the dark, and God have been using me mightily. So the thing that we are going to do with our country home over here is to train a young people that they can be used by God mightily, especially to train them about health, to train them about how to live without depending on any institution or any government work and all, that they can depend only on God and also on the skill that God have given to them. So that's what we are going to do with the country home that I have over here. So another thing is also we have in the city, in the town, we have a youth movement called EYC, and the brothers Duncan have participated on that meeting last year, September 4 to 7 to 2019. So he have seen how many young people and have understood about the spiritual prophecy, because there was the workshop from those people who have given a workshop. Pastor Duncan, our brother Duncan, is one of them. So in the city, we are running EYC. In the town, we are running EYC once in a year. In the country, we want to train a young people who want to show the real identity of Seventh-day Adventists. So the main agenda of my country home is to mold, to train a young people that they can be studious, that they can read the Bible and the spiritual prophecy as well. Because Bible, spiritual prophecy simplify, clarify, and exemplify the Bible. So it is not something which confuses you. It is something which can be a mirror for you, that you can understand the Bible more. So, as I have quote from the spiritual prophecy earlier, she said, unless we forget how God has led us, we have nothing to fear for the future. Oh, there are many young people who are listening to this testimony who are saying, "What can I do if the government stop paying my salary? What can I do?" Follow his lead. That's only what we can do and all. It's better to follow his lead rather than depending on anybody. This present time, I'm not just working in any organization, and I just living with what God have provided me and all. And so just that itself is really just amazing. So I have gone through the training, theology studies and all in Spicer, as well as at Ethiopia Advanced College. And for me, and I'm serving as a lay evangelist in the whole Ethiopia. So I want to be used by God. I don't want to follow my own emotion. I don't want to follow all my own pleasure. So that's how God have led me, you know. So for me, and then there are many people who are stressed in the home because they are quarantined right now. We don't know what to do. Really, what is in my heart is the quotation that the servant of the Lord have put for us before 200 years ago. She said, unless we forget how God have led us in many crises, in our church history, unless we forget how God have led us in many things that we have passed through, we have not to fear for the future. For me, and even and for other people and all. So this is my short testimony, just shortly. Thank you very much for listening and all. Really, God bless you. I'm very happy to share testimony. I want to save the time for other people. That's why I want to make brief as much as possible. Thank you very much.
Amen, brother.
Amen.
Thank you very much for sharing. And it is amazing how God has blessed you in acquiring your property there, and God is waiting to bless all those who are willing to follow His leading. So,
Amen.
Brother Duncan, welcome back. You can share your testimony about how God has been leading, how God has led you into the countryside, and yeah, you can take time now and share. Yes, brother, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Brother Duncan.
Oh, well, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brother Andrew. Thank you so much, Brother Dennis. Thank you so much, Brother, my next immediate neighbor here. Thank you so much, Brother Zach from the other far end. I'm so much happy for this chance that I should testify of what the Lord has done to me and through me in this east part of Africa. I'm so much grateful that we are keeping in touch since we left each other some months, even years have gone. But still, the Lord is faithful. He has been holding our hands together through this technology. And I praise God for everything and for every life that we have up to this present time. I want to start by telling you that I am Pastor Duncan Nyamamba. I come from the east part of Africa. I am a Kenyan national. And in Kenya, we have some groups of people whom sometimes we refer as some tribals. I come from the group or the ethnic group called the Kisi, and that is from the western part of the Republic of Kenya. My life journey is a bit long, but I can start by saying that I was born in a family of 10, and out of the 10, I'm the youngest. And in these 10 people, or these 10 siblings, all of them, we were born in a Christian or in an Adventist family. My parents were not Adventist, but later on they converted, and so we also followed their steps. It has been a great journey in education. I studied my education for the secondary in my country, in some corporate companies, before I transitioned my life and moved to my neighboring country here called Uganda, where I went to study my course in theology. After that, I came back. I worked in the church. I worked for us from the year 2014 to somewhere 2017 when I moved to India for further studies. And this was a place where I transitioned my life completely and it is the place where I came. Many things are on the true message of the Lord unfolded itself in my life in a very unique way. In this time, when I reached in Spicer University, I didn't know anybody. I just left my country going to India. I had nobody whom I knew there. I just arrived there and I found a brother whom we refer sometimes as Joy or Gemechu. He became my friend because he was now the only person who was coming from nearby my country in Africa. And so we started interacting, and something like 2 weeks later, he had to connect me with Brother Zach and Brother Giles, who were having some Bible studies outside there, outside the Spicer University. When we went there, it was a bit interesting. I loved it. And then we made our way to Zacky's country, living somewhere outside. It was somewhere in Mahad, where we used to have the whole weekend studying a lot. And our knowledge of the Word of God increased because of that studies and encouraging, which was coming from him and their way of life from their families, which showed exactly how the heavenly, I can call it just heaven on earth. I experienced that love in their family, which was so good, and our friendship kept on growing. It was so good that we got that message, country living message from Brother Zach and Brother Charles, and we received it. We came to Spicer University with that gladness and the joyfulness of sharing that message. But it was unfortunate that it was neglected. But we said that wherever we'll be sharing out that message to all people. Be it they like it or not, we'll share it. Then at the end of it all, glory and honor will go unto the Lord. After that time, Gemechu finished his studies and left. Zach also left. I was left alone in India. And we met some time later with Brother Andrew somewhere in Delhi, where we were with some other Africans for ministry. We did a lot, but then time came now for parting. I want to thank God before I forget that I moved to Brother Dennis's place, where I took like a month. I had a lot, and I did some work there, which was a bit hard. I can say it was an experience. I planted some plants for him, some tomatoes and some other vegetables. I think I left there before they matured, but I want to think that also they did something to make sure that the family is taken care of through that kind of food. And so it was an experience also of learning some new things. I know how to cultivate. And so instead of just relaxing in Spicer, I spent my time in Dennis's family for a month, where we did a lot and we studied a lot in his library at home. From that time now, the main people whom we were close to now, that is Gemechu and as Brother Zach, they left. I also stayed in Spicer until it was a time for also leaving, and I left. I came back to my country here in Kenya. When I came, it was a bit shocking that when people were asking me to go and report to the conference for a posting, I told them that I'm not going to get a posting from the conference. And so it was a bit funny for them, and they were saying, oh, with all the education you went abroad to India and you have come back, you don't want to be employed? What is this? Then I had to get into conflict with some of my siblings, but I told them that it must be I to follow the command of God. I have to do a useful work. And now, as they were thinking of a useful work is to go, yes, to preach is good, but they never expected me to hold a hand of a fork or just to dig in the farm. they never wanted to hear that. We took you there, we sent you there to go and study, so come here and go, probably work in the conference office or go and preach somewhere in the district. It was a bit funny for them to see me telling them that I am not ready to go and minister. Yes, I can preach, but most of the time I have to take my time in planting and in nurturing of the plants and making them grow, because from that is when I was learning how God is patient with us. When you come in the morning and find a plant that's just fallen, you just lift it up, you support it and make it, and just support it with some soil and make it stable. Or some winds may come and make some plants falling away or leaning away. You also, you don't just throw them on or just you break them more. You just support them. And that has been a good experience in my life. And so I have managed, since I came from India, it is now by May 3 this month, I'll be finishing 1 year back here at home. And I've been doing some work. Some people have been saying that I am wrong, but others, I thank God, they have been appreciating and telling me what is that the way I'm following or the work I'm doing is commendable, is good. And so I've been having both parties, those who support me and those who are against me, but I follow the command of my God. And I don't have anything to fear for the future because I know he who holds the future. By God's grace, when I came, there is a group of people here in the country who are not so much preached to, and even the church is not ready to go there because they are seen as sometimes poor, and for their work is only to keep. Or you can go to your Google and check the Maasai tribe, the Maasai, M-A-A-S-A-I, Maasai tribe. This is a group in my country. They keep only cows, and so they don't go to the garden. They keep only cows, and they don't want anything to do with the church. But I befriended them, and I knew their language. I can speak to them, and so they became my friends. And by God's grace, I have a church in their community, which I sometimes minister to. And those are the people when I have any mission, those are the people I do mission with. And they have been of great love to the word of God. And it has been so good that we are getting some reception in them. Further, in my home now, right now, let me tell you that at the moment, I'm not in the village. I had just come to the city to get some 1, 2, 3 things to use at home. And as I came, I had come on a Friday, and on a Saturday, it was announced that with an immediate effect, nobody should move out of the city. And so we were locked inside the city, and I had not managed to travel. But now we have some 5 days, then it will be opened. It was to be 21 days lockdown. Now, after something like 5 days from now, it's going to be finished. Then I go back to the village after the lockdown, which I've experienced here. In my village, I have a land which I have inherited. It's a land of inheritance from my parents. It's probably, I can say 10 hectares, which I do farming. And in this land, we plant some vegetables, some corn, and we have some bananas. We also plant some beans and some other kinds of legumes which are just locally available, and they are best loved by the people in the village. That is what I do most of the time. I'm in the garden doing that. And in that place, one of my friends who was having a school there in my village, who was my friend and who loved what I do, he told me that my school is so hard for me to manage. And I want to give you full ownership of the church, of the school, so that you can be able to manage it and make sure that it keeps on moving ahead and growing. And so the school is fully registered with the ministry in the country. And my work was only to just make sure that it keeps on moving well. And he gave me full ownership of everything and told me, now you can continue going. So what I did is to make sure that I come in, I put all the measures necessary for the education. Then we sat with the teachers and introduced a subject called useful work. And in this subject called useful work, here we help the young people. It is a primary school, children from the age of from the age of 6 to the age of 13. From the age of 6 to 13. That is the age. Somewhere, maximum is just somewhere 14. And there we train them on useful work as a subject. And in this subject, 80% of the work done, it is field work, whereby we have land enough, whereby they go there, they do field work, they plant their own crops, and at the end, when they grow, they just keep as they can sell and keep money as a class, and which can help them. And in that way, we help them learn useful work and also to be able to give back to the community. And whatever they get, they can decide what to do that can be best remembered, that somebody did something to somebody who never, who was not or who was not able to help himself. And so that one is there. The school has somehow like 200 young people who are studying there. And I thank God because the Lord has given us the approval that the children, the parents are giving us the children so that they can be taught on how to do some other things like tilling of the land and making sure that they do everything responsibly. There was also the main reason as to why I accepted this offer to manage this school, because whenever I was planning of getting what we call a place to hold the School of Prophets, I couldn't get enough facilities. And now I'm able to tell you that I have enough facilities. Whenever I try to have the School of Prophets, like I was planning that by June this year I was to have one, I have enough space, I have places to reside, I have enough like manpower to do some other things. And so it is an honor that the Lord has given me, so that I can have somewhere whenever I want to do anything I can do from. And so we want to thank God for the far He has brought us. We have been having challenges, but we know Him is powerful than the challenges which we usually find. Now, my home is within the compound of that school. I have made a home in that school, and that is where I stay. And in that home, I have 4 cows, which from them I get manure to do some planting in the garden. I have some 5 goats, which also from them I get good manure also for the planting. I have some chicken there, and I have some 2 cats, and also I have one dog who is acting as security. You come home without my knowledge, you are finished. So that is the goodness. That is my story. I've seen the hand of God. I've learned to trust Him. I get the encouragement from a man of God called W.D. Frasi. From this man, he tells me that the world does everything backwards. In other words, opposite. And so to get the world back to where it was is me to just start doing things in a straightforward way. And that is to move out of the cities, because God did not create us in the cities. He created man and made him just there in the Garden of Eden. And there in the Garden of Eden, he could experience a nice aroma from flowers. He could experience nice nature. He could experience everything good. But now we have done everything backwards. And here we are in the cities. And so we don't have enough time to focus and see what the Lord can do to us and through us. And so this platform is so nice because it helps us to save our families. Whenever our families, our children cannot be able to learn new things, some teachers are here in the streets who can teach them wrong motives. So there in the village, they cannot be able to get somebody who can corrupt them. And so the message that we should move out of the cities keeps on ringing each and every time. But the question remains, how? And that one will be tackled later. I'm so much grateful, brothers, for this chance. May God bless you. Let's keep holding on to Him. Let's hang on Him. I know it won't be long. Soon and very soon, we are going home. God bless you all.
Mm. Thank you, brother, for sharing your testimony. And yeah, when you're staying in the country, it is always nice to have a good guard dog with you. My testimony runs along different lines. I grew up in a Christian family, and I was born in the country and was raised basically all of my life in the country. So I was, I guess, living in the country was something that I had that I grew up in. After I finished my training, my medical missionary training, and I came to India as a student missionary. That was really the first time in my life that I stayed inside of a city. I stayed in 3 cities during the 8 months that I was in India, and it was during that time that I was able to see a lot of poverty. I was able to see a lot of just things that would make you sad. Fast forwarding a few years, in 2012, I got married here in India, and my wife's family, they are from the tribal community, so they live in village areas, and normally they have their villages by the forest. And so my wife was very familiar also with simple living, and I'm happy that God arranged that my spouse is also accustomed to living a simple life. It's easier to live a simple life when both of you are in it together, and so I'm thankful that God had arranged that. Um, during the time of my wife's pregnancy, because of some bad influences in the home we were staying in, we were staying in my in-laws' home, and because of the abuse that she was receiving, we decided to move into the town, into an apartment. And during the time that we were staying there, I was reminded of why I don't like it there. Um, I I can admit that the influence of my wife's pregnancy was not as bad as it would have been. It's not as bad as if we would have stayed in the village, because in the village, you know, abuse towards a woman will affect also the child, and so I'm glad that we were able to get away from that. And I know that it was the lesser of the two evils. But we wanted to get back out. We didn't want to move back with the in-laws, and so we had gone looking for land. And the land that we had looked at, it was in a very uh, isolated area. It was also by the forest. There were other families living there who were tribal. Um, but we also were presented some land by fellow Adventists that was nearby uh, to my in-laws, good enough distance away, but also fairly close. And so my wife thought that this would be good, and I also thought that okay, this will be fine as a place to buy land to start our own home and possibly our ministry. And so um, one thing that I mean, there are several things that I learned about buying land while I was here in India. Was that even though the person may be a member of your own church, they will not hesitate. They may not hesitate to try to cheat you, because we had given them the full money for the land. Where the deed was made, and we were waiting for the registration to take place. And they were holding back. They were refusing to give the registration, and because of that, I was not wanting to build land on or build on anything that was not registered to us. So after some arm twisting from my in-laws, they they agreed to register the land. And we are here now on we have what's called 1 beacon of land, and we have our home here. We have been here for the last 3 years, and from here we will go out and we will do seminars, or I will have speaking engagements in other churches in different states. And here on our land, we do a lot of agriculture. We just started harvesting our flaxseed. Our fruit trees are starting to bear fruit this year. Um, we have guavas, we have papaya as well, and pineapple, and we're getting blossoms on our pomegranate tree. We're just hoping that they will stay on this year with some good pollination. We have other vegetables and things that we are planting in the garden, and I'm happy that now my daughter, she's 5 years old, and she enjoys playing outside. And my son, who is going to be 10 months on Monday, he enjoys playing outside. Um, they are not addicted to movies and games. Um, it is easier to instill the love of God into their mind when we are out and surrounded by nature, which is why I know my parents raised us in the country, and it is just a sense of peace being out here. We are by the forest, even though we have elephants that come out and try to eat our rice. You know that God's protection is there with you. Um, so I'm thankful how God has led us. We've had to um, learn to adjust because this is a different country for me. But I'm thankful that God has called me out out here to be a blessing, and He will use you to be a blessing as well. As you've heard in the other testimonies, um, we all have been influenced and encouraged by one another, and that is something that is important when we are moving or taking a new step. That we support and encourage each other. Um, so it is my prayer that you are blessed by what you have heard so far, and that you will be blessed by um, what Brother Zach will also be sharing with us. So if you are desirous to move out of the city into a countryside, I'm sure God has a plan for you, just as He has led everyone else who has spoken thus far. So I'll hand over this time now to Brother Zach, and I'll let him share his testimony, how God has been leading him.
All right. Yeah, it's a blessing to hear how the Lord is leading each and every one of us. And sometimes when I look back at India, I made a lot of mistakes in India, and God often reminds me that there were people that was reached by the efforts our family did give, even in our mistakes and the things that we did. So it's a blessing to hear what's going on with Duncan, what's going on with Joy. I'm sometimes in contact with him, but I don't get to hear, full length. It's just sometimes messages short here and there. It's nice to hear Dennis's story. I'd heard that before, a little bit of it, and that was actually the first time I'd actually heard, which he didn't mention it in his testimony, but who built the first city was actually the first murderer, which was Cain. He was the first person I heard that from, it's an amazing thought. I'm Zachary Strait Williams, and I grew up in Arkansas, a state in the U.S., and I didn't grow up in the city. I mean, I wouldn't say that I had a country living youth experience, but I grew up in a town that was about 3,500 people, and then we lived outside of that as a farming community. My life as a young person was caught up in sports and things like that, and there was never this learning how to do anything type thing. I went through AFCO training back, I think it was 2012, and from there, I can't share everything, but from there I went to India, and actually the first big cities I actually come in contact with were cities in India, which was actually probably the best place you could experience a big city would be in India. For example, Delhi, Hyderabad, and different places like that. I mean, it's overwhelming, the people and the congestion. And I remember really what really got me thinking of the importance of country living, not just reading it. You know, we read and we read and read and read, and we can read all day long. And sometimes it's just words until we actually start experiencing what we're reading. And I remember we were doing some trainings there I was leading out the Amazing Facts program, AFCO program there in India, and we were doing some trainings. We were traveling all over, and it was my family. My wife is actually from India as well. I'm not going to go too in deep with that, but we were traveling to Delhi. We were in Delhi doing a meeting, and my daughter at that point was 8 or 9 months old. And we were walking down the street. All of our team was walking, and I saw my daughter. Her eyes were just going back and forth, just looking and looking and looking and looking and looking. And it was just like right then the Lord impressed me, this is not where she needs to be. Because I seen that she was observing attentively. I mean, she was really observing what was around her. She wasn't doing it just to be moving her eyes. She was actually watching and seeing, observing everything that was around her. And from that point forward, we knew we had to do something. And the first step was we decided that they would stay home when I traveled. They wouldn't travel with me for the sake to keep her at home. But even at that point, we lived in a town called Tinsukia, which still has about 250,000 people, from what I can gather. And it was still congested. And I remember some things were happening in Tinsukia. There's a lot of bans, a lot of terrorist activity there. And after some things happened, I was in Meghalaya doing a meeting, and my wife had called and told what was going on. There was some killing. There was all kinds of stuff going on. And we made a decision right then, we're getting out. And we had been reading Country Living. We've been reading the Bible. We've been knowing that it was the best influence for her or my daughter was to be out in the country. And the Lord led. You know, he provided us quickly a place in West Bengal to be at, and we actually started doing the AFCO training there in West Bengal. But so what really, I guess from what I've just said, what really got my attention about country living was my daughter. I just, like Brother Dennis, it was seeing my child at that point. I didn't know what was she going to learn, and I began to study, knowing that the most important years of a child's life is between 0 and 7, and that's when the foundation is laid. And I began studying my Bible, and I began to see, there's Psalms 127:1, except the Lord build the house, I labor in vain to build it. Another verse that's really hit home with me, and it stays with me constantly, and that's the last 3 verses of the Old Testament, where it says, remember ye the law of Moses, my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb for all Israel, with the statutes and judgments. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming dreadful day of the Lord, and he shall turn the heart of the fathers. Some people read that and they think it says father, and they think it's talking about, our Heavenly Father, but it says the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to the fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. So in these last days, I know, and I already see it, and it's already happening in my life, and you can hear it from Brother Dennis, and you can hear it from others, that the Lord is bringing on a revival and a reformation of homes, because our homes are really what makes up the church, what makes up society. And the reason our churches are in such disunity and is because of our homes are such disunity. The reason the society is in such disunity is because the homes are in disunity. And God is calling upon, and he's, it's not just Seventh-day Adventists, but we have a message to give in this area of reviving and reforming homes that reflect the image of Jesus, that we have little heavens on earth. And in order to get that, in order to have a home that is in Christ, we must follow Christ's plan. We can't just think of our own plan and do whatever we think is right. We have to go to him and have to study his word. And you can read in, I think it's Cross Object Lessons. It's in the book Education. Education, page 77, it talks about how God's education system goes about. And he's got 4 lessons books. And one is his word, and one is nature, useful work, and the book of experience. And you can't follow that plan in the city. It's not possible. In the city, you don't have nature. In the city, there's so much temptation. There's so much busyness. It's all about surviving. And you've got to make enough money to survive. And when you do that, your time is spent there, and your time is not spent on what God would have you to spend it on. You're not able to spend time in his word. You're not able to be in nature. You're not able to take part in the useful labor that he would have us to do, trades that are useful. We've gotten to an age now, everything is computer. And I'm not against using the computer. We're using it now, to be able to communicate this message. But we've become so dependent on technology that we've totally somewhat left God's plan. And I thought of this thought the other day, that the 12 disciples they turned the world upside down. They reached, as far as I know, the known world. Those 12 disciples were able to reach the known world at their time without Facebook, without YouTube, without a computer, without TV, without a car, without a radio, without a plane. I mean, they did it on foot. And there's going to be a call to go back to I've heard this said before, that the last, and I'm going to put this post on Facebook the other day, the last harvest of sheaves from this earth will be done with hand sickles. We've gotten to a position to where we're so much used to, we think that a combine method is going to get it done. We think that it's going to be just through, and I'm not against media, I'm not against, preaching and having sermons going all over the place, but there was a man in Jerusalem before the siege, and he warned them that there was a siege coming, but he got trapped in the city because he didn't heed his own warning. He didn't do what he was actually supposed to do, and he ended up dying in that city, in the siege, when the Christians that heeded the warning got out. They practically did what God had instructed them to do. Jesus told them long before, to get out. When you see that army coming around the city, you get out. And, I look at what's going on right now, and I'm going to say it's the first siege, because I know that some would say the first siege was probably the Blair Bill, and they have their own theories, but something practically is going on right now. And you can see, just like Brother Duncan he's stuck. He can't get out of the city he's in. He's stuck in the city. I know Brother Charles, as far as I know right now, he's been stuck in Bangalore since March 1st. He has not been out of Bangalore since March 1st. And these things are practically happening. So if we're going to make it and be the witness God has called us to be, we've got to get back to his plan. And a home in the country is the foundation. And I don't want to say that because someone say, oh, well, Jesus found. He is the foundation. His plan is the foundation. He is the plan. And in Ministry of Healing, page 365, we find that he came to teach us how to live. How to live. We can't just read a book and read. And again, I'm not against reading. We should study spiritual prophecy. We should read the Bible. But we've got to apply these things that we're reading. If we read and don't apply it, it's more on the sense of condemning us than it is actually saving us. Because when we have the knowledge and we don't, he that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. So when we know to do something, we don't do it, it's putting us in a really bad spot, not just for us, but for our families, for our children. And God is wanting to use our families to reach other families. And if we're not doing what God has called us to do, and we claim to be something, they're watching that, and we claim to be something, and they see something different, we're held accountable for that. Again, back on the note of why we started seeking, and I can't go through the whole story of our country living experience. We've been here and there and everywhere. There's verses that refer to about the home, but thus saith the Lord, even the captives of the mighty shall be taken away, and the prey of the terrible shall be delivered. For I will contend with him that contendeth with thee, and I will save thy children. So there's a fight. We are in a fight. We're in a war. And if we just keep opening the door to the devil and just let him in our home and let him do whatever he wants, we're done. But Jesus says, if you will contend, if you will fight back, and the only way to fight back is with God's plan. If we will fight back, he says he will save our children. There's also a verse in Isaiah, I think it's chapter 54 is what it is. It says, and all thy children shall be taught of the Lord, and great shall be the peace of thy children. So if our children are taught by his plan, I mean, anybody listening that has children, if your children are just crazy and acting all like a chicken with his head cut off everywhere they go, whether in the house, whether in church, whatever, if you will stop and take heed of God's plan and teach them of the Lord by the Lord's plan, you will see a great difference in their actions, a great difference. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, but you will begin to see a great difference in your children when you will continue to follow his way of life. We were trying to leave India, even when we were in West Bengal. That was back a few years ago. And the Lord ended up leading us in a different direction. And that was to Maharashtra. And we got a place there in Mahad, there in Maharashtra, up in the mountains. And, it was hard. And I know we made some mistakes. And I know, Andrew, you know just as well as I do how hard it is in India as an American to try to do something, especially legally, land and all these types of things. And this was a hard situation trying to deal with trying to get land. And we did get land, but with issues there, we had to sell it and end up selling it. But before we sold it, I praise the Lord. You've heard two testimonies already today that were impacted by that home that we had in the country. Now, I don't believe it was us. I just believe that in giving them the environment, giving them a sense and a sight of a plan that God had for his people, really stuck with them. And I believe they carried on. We've got to learn not to depend on man. we've gotten to a situation where we, as people, we have our favorite. Well, I don't have a favorite, but we most have a favorite evangelist or a favorite speaker that they turn on YouTube and they can watch them all day long, and they just lean on those people's words and only follow what they say, and they'll quote everything they say. We've got to get away from that. If we're going to finish the work as God would have us finish it, I'm not saying we shouldn't listen to sermons, we shouldn't study, we shouldn't have Bible study and hear people out, but we can't depend on that. Because when we start depending on a man is just as much a sinner and just as much clay and as we are. And if they fall, guess who else falls? But if we'll stand on the Lord and we'll stand by the Lord and we will depend on him totally, that is, I think, the message. If you had to sum up the message that must be given to the world, it is trusting God. I know it sounds so cliche, but trusting God, that was the issue in Eden. And God has been working to get us back in a position to fully trust him ever since then. And he's done all he can do. He's put every plan in place. He's done everything he possibly can do to get our attention and to give us the plan to follow that's going to bring life's true success and heavenly standards. Again, I praise the Lord that we had to place in Mahad. We had to leave, not because anybody's forcing us to leave, but we knew that I had been studying, and I found that I knew that we're going to come to a point to where we can't buy ourselves. And I thought, what are we going to do? My last few months in India, when I went and done any speaking, I always ask this question, and I know this is not a spiritual question, it's more of a practical question. I would ask, when a Sunday law passes, what will you eat? What will you eat? And I found out that nobody had the answer because everybody goes and buys food from somebody. We visited my wife's parents in Assam before we left. And I got there and I was amazed. And I told my wife, I said, they are Hindu, but they are more ready for a crisis physically than we are. They have all the food they need right there. They even have gas that is naturally from cow dung that is stored in a tank, that they run a hose out of this tank to their stove and able to cook with that. They got all the fruits, they got everything they need. And I told my wife, I said, we're not ready. They're practically ready, but they're not spiritually ready. We're not even spiritually ready, and we're not practically ready. But we know what's coming. And so we knew that we must do something. And I saw that there was a need in having a system developed that was, we've become so dependent on Babylonian systems. We become so dependent on a Babylonian food system. We become so dependent on a Babylonian healthcare system. We become so dependent on making money from Babylonian ways. And so many systems. In fact, God has all his systems. And we know that the devil has a counterfeit for everything that the Lord does. And we're so caught up in, as a people, in these systems that Babylon has established, and we've just fallen through them or with them. And I see a need, and I read it in the spirit of prophecy, I see it in the Bible, that we must go back to a system that is very simple and very sustainable and by God's plan. Once you get to the country, I was speaking in Germany some time ago. It'd been a while ago. And before I was speaking, we were having Sabbath school, and there was a leader from the GC, and the Sabbath school was about how to reach the cities. And part of that Sabbath school quarterly mentioned one quote about the country, about country living. And they just overlooked it. And I brought it back out and said, hey, I said, if we want to reach the cities, we need to go to the country. And they just looked at me like I was crazy. Like, what do you mean if we're gonna reach the cities? How are we gonna reach the city if we go to the country? I said, well, and before I said it, this leader said, I don't know what all this country living stuff is about, because is it what I can tell you, just go out there and you sing songs and you come back to the city and work, come back to the city and do whatever, but you go home and sing songs in the country and then go back to the city. And that's I guess ends up being kind of the idea that some people have, that you just go to the country and just, I guess, just skip around and sing songs and enjoy the trees and enjoy the shade and things like that. But it's not that way. The country living is a system of life. It's a life that God has given us. It's His original plan. In Genesis, He said that that's where He put Adam. He gave Adam a work, and He put him in a garden. And so I mentioned in that Sabbath school class, I said, country living, the foundational purpose for country living is character development. And if we cannot share something we do not have. If we try to share something we do not have, we're only going to confuse people. I kind of want to break away because I want to share with what exactly we're doing right now. And I know Brother Andrew's smiling because I know we're getting into a little bit of time. But we moved to the U.S. 15 months ago. The Lord impressed me that we should go full time, no support from anywhere, just go and do ministry. I, like Lot, thought, Lord, why go to the mountains when there's that little small city over there? It's not so bad, isn't it? And what I mean by that, I said, well, Lord, I need to get my family established in the U.S., at least have a little idea of how life, because our family lived in India. We were an Indian family. At least an idea of how to live. And we got hooked up with a ministry and got to New Mexico and worked with that ministry and started to see real quick, like we paid off almost all of our debt before we come to the U.S. Within like 3 or 4 months, we were already in debt because the ministry couldn't pay us enough money. My truck was getting broke down. All kinds of things are happening. And we just say, no, we're going to move. We're going to get to the country. This was in the country somewhat, but it wasn't really country living. We're going to move. We're going to get to the country. And the Lord led us, once again, He led us to a state, Tennessee, where we currently are. And I thought, well, it'd be a good idea. I've never worked a job with my family. I thought, well, that's maybe a good idea. Maybe I should do that. Well, the Lord didn't tell me to do that, but that's what I thought we should do. So then I get this job as an Adventist business. It had to do with making agricultural equipment, selling agricultural equipment. And within about 3 or 4 months, I realized I wasn't making enough money even there to provide. And I started doing extra work, which caused me to be gone all the time. I was away from my family all the time. And it was kind of interesting. We thought, well, we'll try to save money, and that way we can move out of the country, because we got to have money, right? We got to have money to be able to move, to be able to buy things. You got to have money. And I came one day, I was leaving. It was a Thursday night. I was leaving Thursday. I'll be back Friday evening. And I came in, I was delivering greenhouses, and I was going to leave. My daughter came in, and she said, Daddy, where are you going? And I said, well, I've got to go take these greenhouses. She said, why? And I said, well, we've got to make money. And she asked me this question. She said, is that how you're supposed to make money? And I stopped and I said, well, baby girl, we've got to have, we're trying to get a property and we need the money. She said, but Daddy, said, God has something for you to do. Don't you know that He'll provide? And it's so interesting. And God impressed me to stop what I was doing. He said, this is not what I've called you to do. As soon as I got home, my wife said, this is not going to work. This is not what God has called us here to do. You have to stop. You have to be home. And as soon as we made the decision, let's hear me out. As soon as we made the decision to stop the rapidness of going and trying to make money to be able to buy property, we found the property. Within 3 days, we found the property that God wanted us to have after I quit running around trying to make money. And we got it with no down payment, 10 acres, 2 houses, a barn, and no interest for the payments. And so we hadn't moved over there yet, and it was probably a month ago. No, probably 2 or 3 weeks now. I just got to the point I was still working 4 days a week with the business that's selling this equipment. I was customer service, so I was just on the computer all the time. And the Lord was I mean, for 2 or 3 months, He's been saying, this ain't it, this ain't it, this ain't it. But in fear, I'm fear. As a father, you want to make sure you're going to financially take care of your family. You want to make sure we're going to eat. You want to make sure that the things are taken care of. And it's a scary thing. But I'm going to tell you, the most peace I've ever had in all of this was when I went in and gave a 2 weeks notice. And because I knew that God had called us. When we left India, God said, impressed me that you must have a ministry that's going to teach people how to live, that's going to reach families and share with them that God, I have a plan. I have a plan to take care of you and to take care of whoever wants to follow me. I have the plan. It may not be what you like, but I have a plan that will bring success, that will reach people, that will take care of your needs. It may not get there to the last minute, but it will take care of you. There's a verse in Jeremiah 2:13 that says, for my people have committed 2 evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and they have hewed out themselves cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water. We are living in that kind of system. We have manufactured our own holding tanks, our own cisterns, and they can't even hold water. All they can do is keep us in slavery. And until we make a decision like Daniel, he purposed in his heart, till we purpose in our heart and decide, I'm going to move forward and trust God with his plan. He's going to sit back. He's going to sit back. But when we do that, he's going to act. He is going to act mightily. And I thank the Lord. I really believe that God is calling us to have family, ministry, businesses in that order. Family, ministry, businesses. That's what God is going to use to finish the work. It's what he's going to use to sustain us. And we as a people have to pray and ask God, when I get to the country, how am I going to sustain myself? What ministry business is my family? Is my family, not business that I'm going to do, but what family ministry business do you have me to do? He led us into agriculture. He's helped me to learn how to grow food, how to grow nutritious food. And that's what we're going out to do in our country home. And I got to hit this. Before we moved out, or we ain't moved out yet, before we got the property, we moved here outside it's still in the city, but it's a duplex. We thought, okay, what if this is what we got right now? What do we do before we get to the country? What can we do now? And we were allowed to grow on an 1/8 of an acre behind our duplex. And with that 1/8 of an acre, we were able to sell vegetables and meet people and minister to people by selling them, and also eat the food that we grew. And people coming, I promise you, there was one woman that drove an 1.5 hours to come buy just our carrots. She says the best carrots she'd had in her entire life. An 1.5 hours for a bag of carrots? I mean, but the Lord has been leading that woman to us. And now where we're moving is going to be 2.5 hours from her. And she said, I will drive to buy your vegetables. She said, and when you open up, because we told her, so the Lord is leading us to open up a training center that we can bring in families and people to come and learn how to live. And she said, when you get it ready, you tell me, I will come and pay. I will pay to learn from you how to follow God and how to grow my own food. The Lord will lead. And there's a few other things that I want to hit on. I'm not going to hit on because of the time, and I hope we're able to hit on them in the future videos. But I want, as an encouragement to people, I want to read this quote. It's from Review and Herald, December 29, 1910. It's actually from a sermon. She says, into the daily life, there come many perplexing problems that we cannot solve. There are those who wish to adjust every difficulty and to settle every question before they begin to work. Such will surely fail. In the end, the future will be just as indistinct and the problems just as perplexing as when they began to speculate about them. It is in following light given, that we receive greater light. Those who go forward in faith will find the solution of the problems that perplex them. Light will shine on the pathway of the workers who go forward without questioning. God will go before them, giving them skill and understanding to do that which needs to be done. Having committed themselves to the work and having asked wisdom from God, let them trust in Him. They cannot carry the burden of the responsibility alone. This Christ does not ask them to do. He will carry not a part, but the whole of the weight of their burden, for He is a mighty Savior. Move forward at the call of God. When He points a work to be done in His name and with full faith, take up that work. You may not see the end from the beginning. Perplexities may surround you. Others may tell you of the lions in the way, but nevertheless, go forward, saying, the Lord wants this work done, and I will act my part faithfully, and I will not fail nor be discouraged. Pray. Pray. God will tell you exactly what line of work, what family ministry business, what place to go. He will tell you exactly where to go. Do not think of your own plans and not try to devise your own ways, because it's only going to lead you in a different direction. Trust Him. Follow the plans He's laid out of it. Follow the light He has given us, and what light is needed more to walk forward, He will give it as it's needed. He will supply our needs if we'll trust Him. Our problem is not resources. Our problem is not resources. They're all there. The problem is trusting the one that has it and the one who can release it to us. So I would pray that and ask that everyone who's watching, seek the Lord. Just spend time. How much time do we spend making money? How much time is spent to make money? How much effort is spent to make money? If we would spend that time and effort in seeking the Lord and finishing the work, God is searching. God is searching for a people who want to finish the work and want to finish it according to His plan. And I pray that this video that we've showed here, or that will be showed later, of these testimonies, I pray that they will be just that, something that's going to lead you to do just that. There's a crisis coming, and we need to establish an Eden economy, an economy that's not based off money. It's not based off of our own thoughts, our own things, but it's based on God's plan. And an Eden economy where us as Adventists, and probably future just Christians, will come in the church, that we will be able to buy or sell, not buy or sell, but be able to interchange between each other and help each other. That's our major problem as a church right now, is this unity. We're so divided. We must unify together as a church and help one another, uplift one another. If there's something I can do and he can't do, I go help him. If something he can do and I can't do, he should come help me. That's how the church started. That's how it was in Acts. That's how the disciples ran the ministry and done what the work they were called to do. We must unite, but we must unite on truth and must unite on God's plan and follow it. So I know I've taken a little bit more than 10 minutes. I apologize, but I pray that it's going to be a blessing to someone and encouragement of a testimony for the Lord.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Brother Zach, for sharing with all of us. It is truly amazing how when we give ourselves to God's service unreservedly, how He opens the way for us to fulfill the service that He has called us to do. And I think of how God, He placed Adam and Eve in the garden. That was their first place of education, and also of how He led the children of Israel into the wilderness, and that was their first place of education when they were being taught again of Christ. And so it is in the nature, surrounded by God's works, that we are admonished and encouraged and instructed to raise our families. And many things will be shared, many questions will be answered in these videos that by the grace of God will be produced And I'll just, since we've already gone over time, I just want to give maybe another minute or two for each one to just give some last comments before we finish. Maybe brother Dennis, do you want to say a few words before we end the call here?
Yes, I think I enjoyed this time. It was very encouraging, and I even got some of my answers that I was struggling with in this sharing that we all did here. It's not very easy to take these kind of steps and to let go of something that you can see is very secure, and to have faith in an unseen way and God. But that's the trust that we have to develop today and right now by His word, by believing His word. We, each one of us, need to make those steps today, and the Lord is with us. That trust and faith, as Brother Zach said, we need to trust Jesus, and He will open doors and ways for anyone and everyone. Sister White says, God has 1,000 ways of which we know nothing about, and we need to pray and ask the Lord to open ways, and without getting into any kind of debt, or He will lead us into that way. So I ask each one of us, or everyone, to trust in the Lord with all your heart, and pray and ask, and it shall be given.
Brother Duncan, if you would like to say any last few words before we close here, you can say a few words.
Thank you so much. I'm so much enriched and grateful for the session that we have had. And it has been my study this afternoon that I read from the book of Malachi, chapter 5, verse 4, verses 5 and 6, which in some sense, somehow Brother Zach just tackled a bit. It says, Malachi chapter 4, verses 5 and 6, behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he shall turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the hard with a curse. Those words I've been thinking and wondering what they mean. And from what my brother Zach has just shared, it has really enriched me. And from the experiences of all people, I see the beautiful land behind Brother Dennis. It is so wonderful. It's so good. It is in the life of the country living that we can be able to experience the great joy of the Lord that He wants us to be. And in this Malachi, turning the hearts of fathers to that of children, it, to my understanding, it will be us going forward heartily, wholeheartedly, and trying to reach everybody and prepare them for the second coming of Christ, because it's near. So our hearts should be clear of all evil things that might be there and reach out to other people. If they have some needs that we want to help them, we do it. They need to learn about the Word of God, we do it. And that is what it means by turning the hearts. And that is, you are turned completely so that you can be able to save other people from the coming doom before the curse comes. May God help each one of us as we keep on looking forward for His second coming. I know, and I'll be this, it won't be long. Science have shown that we are living at the perilous times of the world is closing history. May God bless you all, you and your families. Brother Dennis, God bless you and your family. Brother Andrew, God bless you and your family. Brother Zach, may God bless you and your family. and Brother Gemechu, my immediate neighbor here. May God richly bless you. Thank you so much for this time.
Yes, I want to thank all of you for taking your time and joining together. It is my prayer that the messages and the questions that will be answered in the following videos will be a blessing to everyone. And I think maybe we can expound some of the points that maybe you wanted to bring out, but you, because of time, were not able to. So we will work on that. At this time, we will have a word of closing prayer that God will
You
bless
didn't
those
give
who
me a
have
last
listened.
minute of talking. I just want to say I apologize for taking up more time. You know, it just
Yes, there's
I
no
get
need to
excited. I get
apologize.
excited
It's a
about what God is
blessing.
doing, and I just when I get a chance to
Yes.
share it, I guess I overshare it.
Well, I'm sure those who listening, they will be blessed by what you have been sharing. So yeah, no need to apologize. But yeah, we will pray, and in the next video we will see how we can better manage our time and things of that nature. But as for now, let's have a word of prayer. Brother Dennis, would you like to have a closing word of prayer for us?
Okay, sure. Our kind and loving Father, we thank you for this time that we could all come together, even though we are in different parts of the world, that we are sharing our experiences in the way in which you desire to lead us to that kingdom. We believe that one day we are all going to be together, Lord, with you. And may we keep our eyes focused, but by faith do those things needed in this world today. There are many who do not know what to do and who are ignorant, though they realize that there's something wrong and that something needs to be done, they don't know those ways. Use us, Lord, that we can reach them. We can help people to see that you have a way of life, an alternative way of life that is will bring peace and happiness to us in the end. We submit each one of us and our families and all those people who are searching. Lead us by your Spirit into all truth. These mercies we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.